when the feminist agenda first hit the American landscape, we were sold the Trojan horse. So let's not belabor the point. Told you guys about my speaking engagement last week. I uploaded that video to my YouTube channel. It is titled Feminism, Misogyny, Mysandry, and the tearing the fabric, I'm sorry, of the American family. If you have not watched that talk, I heard the audio was good, but I felt like the video quality was a little fuzzy, but the content was still good nonetheless. I actually talked about how, if you don't know what misogyny is the hatred and disdain of women by men, and misandry is the inverse. It is the opposite. It is the disdain and hate for men by women. So it's two polar opposites. But what I want to do tonight is tie in how feminism, misandry, and misogyny, they're all interrelated, and they all have the same root cause, which is rebellion, right? We've got some rebellion in there, rebellion against God's natural order. We also have a false sense of purpose. I want to talk a little bit about that. So, when we talk about feminism, right? Whether it's first wave, second wave, beach wave, it does not matter. When the feminist agenda first hit the American landscape, we were sold the Trojan horse. We were told, women just want the right to be recognized as equals with our male counterparts, like human dignity and respect. We want the right to vote. We just wanted to be treated right. We didn't want to be treated less than or inferior. We just wanted the same intrinsic rights and treatment as men. That's what they tried to tell us the feminist movement and women's liberation movement was about. But if we examine a little bit closer, we can see that it wasn't about that at all. And fast forward to today, it's really not about that at all. Because what we see today, and I actually talked about this in my talk at the Agents of Truth meeting, I talked about how modern feminism is literally trying to sell and indoctrinate women into thinking that abandoning marriage and motherhood is virtuous, and that motherhood is somehow burdensome, and it's just this weight that needs to be alleviated off of you, and that you need, right, these reproductive rights in order to alleviate yourself of the burden of motherhood, because you can't have a baby tie you down. That baby will hold you back. That baby will get in the way. You won't be able to climb the corporate ladder when you have the inconvenience of a child. That's what they're actually saying, but they're not saying it like that. What they're doing is they're cloaking their deception in very flowery language, right? They want you to now be so heavily represented in the workforce that now there really is no difference between the roles of women and men. They want the lines blurred so much. They say they do, but when you actually push it to its logical conclusion, you will not find a woman who will actually say they want to be treated just like a man. How do we know this? Let a woman drive down the side of the road and let her tire go flat, and see if she does not immediately flag down the assistance of her male counterparts. This happened to me actually a couple of weeks ago. I was on my way with my girl. I was going to meet my friend, my girlfriend, for it was like an early dinner, and tire blew out. And I'm like, okay, let me try to get over to the side of the road. But then I'm freaking out because I'm like, okay, it's not flat, like it's flat, flat. My first instinct was like, "Oh my goodness, my husband's not here." And I'm just looking for the first breathing male. I didn't care what he looked like, right? I didn't care. I just needed a man because a man is supposed to know how to change a tire. And what that does not mean is that me as a female, I'm not incapable of changing a tire. But truth be told, I don't want to be down on the ground changing a tire in the rain. Did I mention that it was about to rain? Like it was about to rain cats and dogs. And having that man there. Now, mind you, I wasn't gonna talk about this part. I think he was a pimp because he had this woman with him and she was kind of dressed a little suspect. And they just didn't really match, right? But for whatever reason, the Lord saw fit to have Pimpy Joe and his side piece or whatever she was assist me with my tire. The point of that story is we can advocate for all of these rights that we allegedly don't have, but you'd be hard pressed to find a feminist that can actually argue to its logical conclusion what rights that we don't have already. I'm talking about in 2022. I'm not talking about in 1955. I'm not talking about in 1943. I'm talking about in 2022. There are no rights that we do not have, humanly speaking, with men that we're somehow being oppressed and we just can't catch a break. We know that it's not true, right? We also we also know that something as simple as when you're in the kitchen and you're trying to open a jar of spaghetti sauce, you'd be hard pressed to find a woman who inwardly who might be a flaming feminist that doesn't say, I really wish I had a guy around here right now to open this jar because your girl is struggling. Now that's a very surface level, right? That's real shallow reason to say, men are valuable and men are important. But I brought that up to prove a point that women today, it's not that they want rights. They actually want to usurp authority over a man. They want to silence masculinity so much so that any hint of a man being masculine or asserting his natural God-given characteristics is now labeled as toxic. And now what we're seeing, we've already seen the fruits of an entire generation that has been raised in a primarily matriarchal society. Let's talk about a little bit about when feminism infiltrates society. What are the few things that happen? One, it's going to lead to the extreme version of misandry, where women actually start to hate and despise men. All you got to do is watch, daytime TV and see the way that women speak about men. And it's very disrespectful, it's very demeaning. And it's actually sad to watch women talk about men in this manner. Feminism also will lead to unhappy, miserable women. I've never met a happy, joyful feminist who's just resting in her femininity, happy being a lady. No, no, no. She's miserable, right? Armpits all hairy, ain't shaved the legs, just out here mad at the world because she's recognized that this feminism, it ain't all that is cracked up to be, and it has led to a life of misery. We also see that modern feminism leads to male absence. When you start seeing women, particularly the ones that share my ethnic image, I'm talking about Black women. When you see this, I don't need a man, and I'm not saying, hear me clearly, I'm speaking in generalizations. I'm not saying that all Black women think this way. Because hello, I'm Black. I don't think this way. But when you hear Black women in particular, not saying white women, all these disclaimers. See how I got to give all these disclaimers because modern language today can't make proper distinctions. When we see Black women today talk about, I don't need a man, and I can do it all by myself, and my brother was raised by a woman and he came out just fine. When you see all of these anecdotal statements being made, what you end up seeing is the result now of effeminate men who they can't fight their way out of a paper bag. They're weak. They're unable to rest in their manhood and their masculinity and lead because they're so used to a woman taking the reins and making it happen. This is what you see. You see an overly effeminized male population to now testosterone levels are so low that it has literally changed the fabric of society and what true manhood from a biblical perspective has actually you just don't see it. And when you do see it, now it's labeled as toxic. Let me take a look and look at some of these comments. That Christian fam, good to see you, says it's not about being equal. The goal is to lord over men. Now, this is nothing new under the sun. We saw this happen in Genesis right after the fall, when the scriptures document that when the Lord told Eve that your desire will be for your husband, not in the, oh, he's just so handsome, I'm just gonna want him. No, it was to rule over him, to dominate him, right? But the scriptures tell us that it's not to be that way. God created male headship for a reason, and women are the help meet. We are equal in essence. Don't get me wrong. And if you're a believer, we're one in Christ Jesus, but we are functionally different. There are distinctions. And when culture tries to tell you that there aren't, they are lying to you. Dear World Christian says the fact that it was clearly laid out in Genesis 3 is so serious. We do right. So December says we have to stand up for families because they are normalizing, baby daddy, baby mama, feminine man, masculine women. You know, that could wrap up this whole segment, December, because the next point I was gonna make is feminism literally leads to the destruction of the family, right? When you have an overly matriarchal society where it's I don't really need a man. I don't need a man for spiritual leadership. I don't need a man for leadership in the home. I just don't need a man, period. What that leads to is women being married to the government, looking to the government to supply their needs, not looking to the men in their life for provision or protection, right? And then you get the baby daddy mom. So it leads to sexual immorality, right? Because if you have a woman who has the mindset of I don't need a man, but she's not really suppressing that innate desire to be a mom, she'll just go out and sleep with someone for the sake of reproduction and then discard the man. She said that standing up for families, if we don't, it's going to normalize the baby daddy, baby mama, feminine man, masculine woman. Absolutely. Women will start just using men for their procreation capabilities, but then they'll discard them and they don't see the value of actually forming a nuclear family. And what happens when there's no nuclear family? Society breaks down. Why? Because healthy societies are made up of healthy communities. Healthy communities are made up of healthy nuclear families, not these pseudo alternative families that they're trying to sell us, right? Where it's the two mommies and the two daddies, or just the one mama, or even the one daddy. Healthy communities, by and large, must have solid families in them with moms and dads. And when they don't, you will see the fabric of society slowly erode and slowly break down. We've seen it. We have a whole generation of effeminized men because we've already tried matriarchy. We've tried it and it's failed, and we are failing, right? Our young boys are not reading at grade level, right? Because when you don't have a male in the home upholding the standard of son, you need to be this way so you can succeed in life, he turns to the streets. Then you end up having over sexualized females because there is no man to affirm her identity, to tell her that she is precious and that she is special and that her body is not a tool to be used and disposed of. And so you see an influx of female promiscuity. It has like such a rippling effect. And then the trauma from the feminism leads to, with the men, to misogyny. They have no concept of what it's like to love a woman as, even in a non-Christian context. Not that we're not removing Christ as a foundation of anything, but what I'm saying is even in a secular society, when there is no family, right? That man never learns how to protect or provide or to provide any leadership. He doesn't know how to cultivate any of that. So it just leads to men using and viewing women as objects to be consumed versus objects to be cared for and cherished. And then on the other end, it leads to the misandry. When there's father absence, right? Women get to the point where they're bitter, they have daddy issues, right? So they're unable to sustain healthy relationships with men. So they're hopping from one relationship to the next, trying to fill the void that father, had he been in the home, he would have set the precedent and the foundation, right, for her to know how to weed out the foolish. But instead of weeding out the foolish, she's looking for, the dude with the moldy Cheeto hair and the pants sagging, because she just needs something. Any semblance of a man and some masculinity to balance her femininity, she'll look for that. And then if she can't find it, she'll just she'll just continue to engage in sexually immoral behavior, being discarded, which ultimately will lead to a hatred of men. She's either going to hate the father who was there and abandoned her, and then any man in her life after that, she's going to compare him to that. It just leads to a host of problems. And then you'll start to see, when you put all of that together into a nice little feminist cake, the fabric of society, it starts to tear away and it starts to pull. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing chaos in our communities because there's no male headship, right? Females, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying females can't be in the workplace, right? I co-own a business with my husband. I labor alongside him, right? But my primary responsibility are these children in this home, period. So my children know and understand the healthy balance of mom and dad. They know that there are certain roles and responsibilities that dad has, and there are certain roles and responsibilities that mom has. My boys know what a godly woman is supposed to look like because they see that modeled before them in their home. My girls know what a godly man is supposed to look like because they see it modeled in their home. Am I making sense? All right, good. All right, here we go. Wait, what's Cheeto hair? Okay, so Virgil, moldy Cheeto hair. It's it's like the dreads that are blonde and look like you just dipped your head in some crushed up Cheeto. That's not me. I actually got that from Dear Woke Christian because he told his daughters, don't bring a guy home with moldy Cheeto hair. And I've been using it ever since. Hey, Cornelius, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to do a video on the new studio tour. I'm really excited about this space, you guys, because I actually have space to do live in-person interviews. You talking about y'all want to sit on the couch? We got that. We got that. We got some new merch. See, I ain't show y'all. Hold on. Y'all gotta see the hold on. That's pray, then slay the day. I've got mugs that I will be adding. We've got ceramic ones. I've got glass ones. I even have like wooden ones that start out as a candle. And then once the candle is done, you talking about green recycling? When the candle is done, you get a coffee mug. I've got some beautiful scents. I'll tell y'all that at the end, though. I don't want to interrupt the show about that. Right. I'm just talking about feminism, how it has led to misogyny, the hatred of men, hatred of women, misandry, the hatred of men, and the breakdown and tearing of the fabric of the American family. I lay the foundation of how healthy communities and societies are made up of healthy families. And we know because of sin and us living in a fallen world that you're going to have brokenness, right? Which is divorce and broken families and out of wedlock births. Like all of that's a product of the fall. But when you see overwhelmingly a society that's actually committed to that brokenness, when you look around and you're like, what is wrong with our communities? Why are the children this way? You can actually look at feminism and see its tentacles, right, in different aspects of the men hating women and the women hating men.